But first, this year the Queensland Labor Party conference voted in support of same-sex marriage. But marriage is a federal law, so the real debate will be at the ALP's national conference being held in December. But 7:30 Queensland can exclusively reveal tonight a high-level move to allow civil unions in this state. A civil union is as far as a state can go to legally recognise a couple's relationship. The Acting Premier Andrew Fraser chose a visit to his hometown of Proserpine this week to reveal his plan to political reporter Chris O'Brien.
Andrew Fraser, welcome to 7:30 Queensland.
Thanks for having me.
Why now? Why have you decided this is the time for you to push for civil unions in Queensland?
I think this is something that's a live debate out there in the community, and obviously it's a debate that's happening at the federal level, but this is something that many members of the government and I personally feel is the right thing to do. And ultimately here we're talking about giving legal recognition and indeed societal recognition to what are completely valid, loving relationships.
It would require a conscience vote on a private member's bill. Will you move that private member's bill?
Look, that's ultimately something I'm prepared to do. I think that the government here has a role to play in this broader debate about recognising these relationships. We need to remember here that this is a debate that is about symbols and recognition. Symbols are important in life, and for us as a government, we recognise that we shouldn't just have an arrangement which is a sterile legal arrangement that recognises relationships by fact, de facto. We should in fact have the opportunity to legally recognise them, for them to be celebrated and held up as valid relationships.
According to the polls, you might not be in government for very much longer. You're here in your hometown of Proserpine. Do you have an eye on history here? Are you trying to make a splash while you still can? Are you trying to make a stand on something while you still can?
Well, I think that's for other people to judge, Chris, but in my time in politics, I've never died wondering. I've always done what I thought needed to be done in local government and making some difficult decisions in the Treasury as well. I think this is the right thing to do, and I think a lot of people think that out there in the community. This is as far as we can go as a state in providing a move that does provide this recognition to a significant part of the community. And ultimately in politics, if you're there for a long time, that doesn't matter. It's what you do while you're there, and I think that this is the right thing to do.
But why do you need to do this? There's already legal recognition of de facto relationships in Queensland.
Well, as I said, I think this is not just about what the law says, it's actually about what society thinks and the way in which those relationships are held up in the community. At the moment, the law operates to mean that you can prove, when it's questioned, that you have a relationship as a de facto of whatever sex. This is about saying that people should be able to hold up their relationships as valid, and indeed they should be able to celebrate them in ceremonies and have other people recognise them, so that there is a validation of that in the broader community, not just an ability to prove it after the fact if the question's asked. And that's the huge symbolic difference at the moment that doesn't exist because these laws aren't yet in place.
So this really doesn't have any practical benefit, it's more about symbolism.
Well, I think it provides the practical benefit in a legal sense by proving that a relationship exists. At the moment, relationships have to be proven, as I said, in the negative and after the fact. This actually provides an upfront validation of that. And what we're contemplating, what I'm contemplating, is a relationship register that provides the opportunity for both heterosexual and homosexual couples, because we recognise that many people want to go down that path.
Does the Premier know you're doing this? Does she support you?
The Premier's got really strong views on this, and she's been on the record, as I have in the past, and the Premier's would be a key supporter of a move in this direction.
Does the party support you?
As we saw earlier this year, the party in Queensland did affirm its views about equality for the community. I think that that's a recognition of the broader community views, and I actually think that this is not a fringe issue. I think this is a mainstream issue. My assessment of talking to people, and I get to talk a lot of people, is that there's strong support in the community out there for this. There's a debate that's going to be had. We recognise not everyone's going to agree with it, but in the end, it's actually got support and it's the right thing to do.
Now, you need parliamentary support. Do enough MPs agree with you?
Well, that will be seen, obviously, if the legislation comes to a vote before the end of the year or at the beginning of next year. But I think that the challenge here is to make sure that we build the community support that exists into parliamentary support. I think the vast majority of the government, the overwhelming majority of the government, will support the bill. And I hope that there are some people on the other side who can see past the dictations of those who are outside the Parliament, and I speak not only of Mr Newman but also Mr McIver, and actually stand up for their conscience and stand with what they've said in the past and provide support for what I think is an important social reform.
So late this year, early next year, when will you do this?
Well, that's up to the Parliament. Obviously, if we introduced it in coming weeks, then there's an opportunity for that debate to occur. Obviously, there's other parliamentary business as well, but what we would like to see as a government are these laws in place because they are the right thing to do, and I think the time is now.
And what about politically? Do you have further ambitions for your parliamentary career? These are tumultuous times politically.
They are, and you know that going into these jobs that you never know what's going to happen next, and you have at always a sense of your own political mortality. For me, I got to do the job earlier in life than I might have otherwise thought, but I've also been really clear about the fact that I would like not to be in the Parliament while my kids are still at home, and so that puts a bit of a self-imposed limit on a career in politics.
Mr. Fraser, thank you for your time.
Thanks for being here.
Chris O'Brien with the Acting Premier there. And if Andrew Fraser's bid is successful, Queensland will join Tasmania, Victoria and the ACT, which already recognise civil unions.